Hello and welcome. This is 951 bringing you Real Estate 101 in the 951. Today we're going to be discussing vacation rentals throughout the Temecula Valley, and we have with us today co-host David Serpa, the branch manager of our community. How you doing, David?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. We also have Jessica with Barefoot Vacation Rentals, and she's going to be talking to us about the market today and what's going on there. And then we've got the local short-term rental expert, Zachary, Bach. How you doing, Zach?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining us. So we're going to be talking about vacation rentals, local legislation, how that's affecting the local valley here. And then we're also going to be discussing what's actually happening and what we can expect to see in the foreseeable future. So Jessica, why don't you go ahead and tell us exactly what you do, who you are, and how you can help the local viewers.
Yes, so my name is Jessica Hinton. I own a vacation rental management company called Barefoot Vacation Rentals. And we host right now we have about 41 houses that we manage. And so we do everything. It's a full turnkey service from, helping people pick homes to managing it, guest communication, the whole 9 yards.
Wow.
So we handle the cleanings and all of that as well. So
wow, that's amazing.
it's a lot of work.
I know. It sounds like it. It sounds like it.
Yeah. We have a nice team of people that all help make the magic happen. I cannot do it by myself. So
that's fantastic. And then Zach, do you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself and why you're the local expert for short-term rentals?
It's short-term rentals. A lot of people want them. A lot of people have heard the buzz phrase, I want to get an Airbnb, I want to get this, I want to get that. Unfortunately, there's a lot of real estate agents that just haven't done their homework on learning about what laws. We've ran into people that have bought houses or looking at houses in areas they can't have a short-term rental because oftentimes it's out-of-area real estate agents that haven't done their homework, haven't looked at the HOAs, haven't looked at the rules and regulations in the local city, and they're telling buyers that they can do it. And then that person closes escrow and they go, wait a second, I can't have a short-term rental here? And then there's panic. There's panic. And so really I stepped into this role because I had a lot of people who wanted to buy them. And so I decided to become that expert.
That's awesome.
I think that there's a lot of people that are constantly offering bad advice, which is one of the reasons why we decided to do Real Estate 101. And you get a lot of it out there. And there's no shortage of bad advice. And when you've got 6,000 real estate agents, there's a lot of people saying things that, hey, listen, instead of saying, I don't know, let me get back to you later. Let me find out. Let me find out about the legislation. And that's what we're going to talk about here in a little while. Because we do live in a country, we do live in a state that is getting more and more hostile towards vacation rental owners. And it's putting people in a bad place. And that legislation has come home. So right now in the Temecula Valley, what are some key things that people need to know if they are going to get into vacation rentals so that they don't get themselves into trouble?
From my side, there's two things. One, it can't be in Temecula. Plain and simple. It cannot be in Temecula. It can be in Murrieta, but there's like 10 houses in all of Murrieta that fit the criteria of what they've established. If you're outside of city limits, now you have to start looking at HOAs. There was a person that had to sell an Airbnb recently because they had a defunct HOA, but because of the short-term rental, they reactivated their HOA and forced somebody to sell. And so even looking at something like that, there's other HOAs that actually you can buy. Glen Oaks is an example. It says it in their bylaws that you can run a short-term rental with certain things. So really, the main thing is just knowing what areas to buy in, what areas to not buy in. If it's outside of city limits, but it's an area like Morgan Hill, you're not running an HOA there. And so it's really knowing those kind of things.
Let me ask, so unincorporated, right? Unincorporated Murrieta, unincorporated Temecula, or no Temecula at all?
Unincorporated Temecula, because that's technically just Riverside County.
Anything in the county of Riverside is fine.
Okay.
And then in the city of Murrieta, if you want to be hosted, you can live in your house and rent it out if it's hosted, but you can't live remotely and then have a vacation rental in the home. You have to live there.
And how many people are really wanting to host vacation rentals? Is that something that's happening?
It's happening, but nowhere near what, like in wine country, there's about, I think it's less than 10% are hosted. The rest are not
I think
hosted.
most of us are looking at it as an opportunity for additional revenue, additional income, taking a property and then renting it out several times a month instead of one time to one tenant that could potentially do a lot of damage over the course of 12 months. Now, so we've talked about where you can. So technically French Valley, you're unincorporated out here. Now, depending on the HOA. Now, let me ask you two questions. One, what type of vacation rentals do well out here? Does it need to be a multi-million-dollar estate home? Does it need to be out in wine country? And then 2, what about just your average home in suburbia? Your 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom home?
I'll take this one. So homes with pools, homes with jacuzzis, homes with experiences. That's what sells. So the cookie cutter house is the next cookie cutter house over. You can have a cookie cutter house, but inside that home, it needs to be unique. It needs to have colored walls. It needs to have a sense of like, I want to go here and I want to experience this. In the summer, the summer and the winter are our busiest seasons out here in Temecula. And in the summertime, our homes with pools are almost 100% booked out. Jacuzzis are about 70% booked out. But if you don't have either, sometimes you're between about the 50 to 60%. So the jacuzzi and the pool is a huge added benefit. We have one house that's up in wine country. It's a wine, or you've been there. It's the Old West. It's like a barn country vibe. That house is booked constantly because it really gives that experience. And that's what people, when they come into town, they don't want to go from their house to another house. They want to go from their house to an experience, and that's what we sell. That's what we try to promote.
And I think that the more and more that Temecula becomes a hip place, I see more and more sun hats that are coming in from out of town. I see more and more like people walking around at all these cool places that we go to with our kids, where we've been going to get pumpkins every year, where we've been going to get Christmas trees every year.
Ice skating.
Ice skating. More and more, there are a lot of people that are coming in from out of town and looking to experience the Temecula Valley and all that has to offer. So it's interesting to find out that not only is it, these really experienced homes, but homes with pools tend to do very well. What about your average 4-bedroom, 2,500 square foot home in French Valley, let's say Monet or Spencer's Crossing or whatever? Would that do well as a short-term rental?
As long as there's, again, the HOA is a huge factor. So if there's an HOA, just shy away. Don't even waste your time.
So Spencer's Crossing, no go.
No go.
Yep.
Yeah, the HOA in the CCNRs, it'll say nothing less than 30 days or 90 days. Some are written differently, but so I would say absolutely no HOA would be the biggest thing.
Okay.
If it's a cookie cutter type of house that looks similar to the neighbor's house, it works. It's and they definitely produce more money than you would do if it was like a long-term stay or something like that. On average, what we've been seeing is you can most likely make about twice as much as you would make if it was a long-term 365-day from a short-term.
Twice as much.
Twice as much.
That is substantial. That's massive.
Massive.
Just for your average home, turning it into a short-term rental versus a long-term rental, you could earn twice as much.
Yes. Now, keep in mind when you're doing a short-term rental, you're responsible for the utilities.
Okay.
You're responsible for the gardening. Of course, if you have a pool guy, all of those, the Wi-Fi, all of those things are the responsibility of the owner. But there's a lot more money to be made in the short term. And then, keep in mind your house is cleaned, 6 to 7 times a month every time it flips. Yeah. You're getting professional cleaners in there to get it cleaned. So your maintenance of your house is being maintained a lot more than it was.
And we'll talk a little bit later about the market turning a little bit and what's exactly happening with vacation rentals, whether or not it's a great time to get into vacation rentals, because I have still a lot more questions about this. But first, there's a pretty big piece of legislation that's being pushed right now that would absolutely decimate the vacation rental industry. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and who's pushing that?
Yes. So the County of Riverside is looking at putting a whole new policy in place right now. There's a current ordinance and they're looking at doing a new draft on their ordinance. That new draft would have significant changes. One being that they would cap the amount of guests to 10 people, regardless the size of the home. So if it's a 7-bedroom, a 10-bedroom, you'd have 10 guests. That's it. It would be 2 person per bedroom, 1 extra. And then once they got to the 5 bedrooms, you wouldn't be able to increase your stay at all. So that's really going to do an effect on our business. It's about 30% of our business is over 10 guests. And usually that's the sweet spot's about 16. But in a house that's on 5 acres, that's 4 bedrooms, 5 bedrooms, it can easily accommodate safely, that amount of people.
I think we have a very American thought about housing. We're like, no, 1 person per room, 2 if you're married. You know what I mean? And it's like, we don't think about things like a family coming together for a family reunion. Yep. But now here to play the devil's advocate, right? I bought a house. It's on 5 acres. there's this vacation rental
Yeah.
that's, that I live next door to, because I've seen the comments too.
Oh,
Where it's
there
like,
are there.
I don't want to live next door to a vacation rental that's going to be, and I get it. I'm kind of mocking it. I'm kind of making fun of it. But if
But
I
it's
was
true.
there 10 o'clock at night, 10:30 at night, having somebody playing the music, having 12 cars parked out in front, and, 12, 14, 16 guests, it can begin to feel like you live next door to a party house.
Or, yeah.
Now, what would be your answer to something like that?
So at Barefoot Vacation Rentals, we are super, super big on our neighbors. We make sure everyone at the houses have a noise monitor, at least 2. Depending on the size of the house, it can go up to 6. But what it does, you plug it into the house, and then it gives a decibel rating. So you can't hear anything. There's no audible, hearing the conversation, but you get a chart, and it shows how loud these decibel ratings are. And we can preset it at a certain rate, and when it's set to that rate, it'll alert our entire team. And then it's all hands on deck. And then we're all out and we're trying to make sure that we can get these people quieted down. We also have ring cameras outside of the houses so we can see and we can hear. And if they don't answer their phone, like actually this weekend we had one that was being and then we have them sign an 8-page contract that says, these are the rules, these are the fines, this is what happens. We want them to police themselves. But this weekend we had one guest that just was not abiding by the rules. So we sent a team member down there. We charged them $300 for having our team member have to go down there. And this yesterday, we wrote checks to all the neighbors for that $300 to pay the neighbors because it was unfair that they're the ones who are being affected by the sound. We're not. And so we want to make sure that we care. Our biggest thing is neighbors. We want to care to make sure that our neighbors are.
So instead of just making it illegal, there are things that you can do to make it adaptable and livable for everybody, is what you're telling me.
We call it eyes and ears.
Okay.
So if you need to be hosted, you can have eyes and ears. You're there. You can see what's going on. But with today's technology, we can totally make everything happen with eyes and ears. We have the ears with the noise monitors. We have the eyes with the cameras. So we can make all of that happen.
So I kind of cut you off a little bit when you were talking about the legislation. So what specifically would this legislation do that would make it so difficult for a vacation rental owner, short-term rental owner to continue to do business?
So at this last meeting that they just had, it was about 3 weeks ago, actually Chuck Washington himself went up and he was saying that he wanted to have all of the vacation rentals up in wine country, specifically in the wine country area, be hosted only. So that would be a huge detriment on our industry. I mean, not in just short-term rentals, but you think of the wine tour companies, all of these hot air balloons, like the whole community would just be devastated.
Well, what it would do is it would make everything corporate. And so when you wonder who's behind legislation like this, 9 times out of 10, it's the hotel industry. 9 times out of 10, it's, the big money that want to choke all the mom and pops, just like you said, not just the vacation rental owner or the short-term rental owner, but also the wine tour companies and the people, the mom and pop wineries. They just make it so expensive to do business in the state of California that people no longer can do it. And there are people that are really extremely like, hey, so what? Well, then get a job. But it's like, you know what? I know for a fact that there are people that have gotten into vacation rentals because they physically cannot do a lot of different work. That's the way that they feed their family. They're disabled. I know personally I have a disabled veteran.
Yep.
And I think, Zach,
Well, what's interesting about this, Dave, is I did the math. And what I love about math is it's a universal language, and you can't lie with math. And when Temecula was deciding to ban short-term rentals completely for the most part, I showed them the math. And their biggest thing was party houses. Well, I used the police data on how many calls there had actually been versus how many nights were available in a 3-year period. And there was something with all the vacation rentals, it was like 190,000 nights available with all the vacation rentals. But there was something like 50 complaints. And so you had a fraction of a percent that actually had complaints, and those ones that had complaints were mismanaged. They were simply not managed by a company like Barefoot. They were managed by some random person who didn't have noise monitoring. And so instead of putting some stuff in place and saying, hey, okay, let's work with the management companies and let's work with the homeowners. Let's not strip property owners of the right to do what they want with their property. Let's just ban them outright. That's what they said.
So what could we do right now as a community to make sure that, because we're getting ready to go through a recession. We called it a housing recession 2 days ago. It's official. We are in a housing recession. And we'll talk about how that's going to affect vacation rentals, short-term rentals here in a moment. We are in a recession, even if you don't want to call it a recession. 2 negative terms of GDP growth. it is a recession. And the outlook is bad for the foreseeable future for business. And so what is difficult for me is watching legislation like this coming forward that continues to put people out of business, and it feels like there's nothing we can do about it. AB 5 was just passed. The Supreme Court refused to hear it. I personally have clients who are truckers who are leaving the state of California because they can no longer do business unless they become an employee. Mm-hmm. And so ultimately it feels like that's what where a lot of this is headed. What can we do to bind together, to rally together, to make sure that our local businesses don't get choked out of business, and that we become completely overrun by the hotel industry, or everybody has to live in their vacation rentals, which is not something that people want to do. So I'm sorry that I monologued, but what do we do, my friend?
So I believe it's September 12th. It could be the 13th. I don't remember exactly, but that's the next supervisors meeting. I'm sure you'll post it. But we would love for people to attend. They said that the public comments have already been closed, which is very unfortunate because there's a lot more to be said. It was a 6-hour meeting and a lot of people got their points across. But when the supervisors were up talking, it was very clear that there was a lot of still questions. Like they didn't understand how noise monitors work. They thought that they could hear people's conversations. So they did. So my thought is always like, if I'm going to get my brain have surgery, I'm going to go to a brain surgeon. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to go to a foot doctor. Mm-hmm. But we have these people making these decisions that are not fully educated, and they're making decisions that are going to affect so many people, and they don't understand what's happening. It was very clear after the 6 hours of comments that they were still clueless. So on the 12th, there's going to be an open public speaking section in the beginning. I just encourage everyone to go in and speak, write emails, make phone calls, make appointments. But unfortunately,
I would say that we use Big Bear as an example of what's happening in Big Bear right now. Is you have Big Bear, which is a vacation destination. Okay, the biggest employer in Temecula is the school district, followed by Abbott. And so we do not have a major tech industry here. We do not have major big employers that bring big. Intel does not have a campus here. Google does not have a campus here. The main attraction of Temecula is our tourism industry. It's wine. And if we start to limit that industry and we start to pull stuff away from that industry, what we will see is far less money coming into Temecula. So these great schools that we have, these great things that people come here to Temecula for, all of a sudden when there's less tax money coming in, what's going to happen? And what you're going to have is you're going to have the hotel industry, and you're going to have big box stores and these other things that want to kick out the mom and pop. So if you're a mom and pop and you are supported by the tourism industry, you need to be involved in this, because if it affects this and it affects people's ability to come to Temecula, nobody wants to stay in a house where there's somebody living in a room. Mm-hmm. And they're like, hey, how's it going? I'm just going to stay in here with my kids while you stay in my house. Thanks.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody wants to stay there.
100%.
And so,
that's not the experience that people are looking for.
Not at all.
When we talk about vacation rentals in general, short-term rentals, people are looking for an experience, especially when they're traveling to Big Bear. They're traveling to Temecula. And so it is really disappointing that our local government is being so anti-small business, because I don't even think that they realize that they are being so anti-small business. So I have one more question to ask you, if you don't mind, Amy, about the vacation rentals with the local government. What is the energy around these city council meetings or whatnot that you're attending? Are people there overwhelmingly in favor of short-term rentals, or are they against short-term rentals being in their area?
I'd say it's about a 60-40 split, 60 pro, 40 negative. And the reason why, because if you have one bad house, right, how many neighbors does that bad house have? 5, 6,
yeah.
Right? If you're a good neighbor, your neighbors, or if you're a good vacation rental, your neighbors don't even know you're doing it.
Correct.
Other than a letter you have to send from the county. But they're not going to go to a meeting on your behalf because they're not being affected by it. So if you have one bad apple, that one bad apple really just takes it out for everybody else. And so you have, let's say you have 5 bad houses. Now you have 30 people showing up to this meeting who are emotionally upset, who can't sleep because you have these loud music. And that's why it's so important to be well managed. And, they're proposing a 3 strike you're out process rule. And I can't agree with that more. I think you get rid of the bad apples, and then you let everybody else keep what they've been doing as long as they've been doing it right. So.
Interesting. Okay, so market shifted. We all know it shifted. Housing prices in Riverside County came down 5% in the last 3 months. We were talking about that in our market update on Monday in the office. Rentals have skyrocketed. Housing prices have skyrocketed. We're finally starting to see these bubbles burst. Is this, first off, what are you seeing now with your current vacation rentals? Are they getting rented? And then, so let's start with there. Are vacation rentals being rented right now?
Well, it depends on the area, and the reason of what it's there for. Big Bear has seen a massive decline in tourism going up there because it's expensive to go up there. Gas prices, everything, inflation, it's hard for people.
That's right.
And so I know that there's a big shift in some places like that. Jess will have to speak to the Temecula Valley. But I think, some of the largest states, some of the place that looks like a ghost town, it's going to be booked all the time. But we could start seeing a shift in some of these other places that don't have that experience.
And that's really what we are seeing. So the homes that have experiences, that have those pools, those are continually being rented. The houses that are the cookie cutter houses, they're getting booked slightly, not as much to the extent that they were. And most of in Temecula, we have over 5,400 weddings a year.
Wow.
And
Whoa!
Yes. And
wait, I'm sorry, you said 5,400 weddings a year?
In Temecula.
5,400.
So that's really our biggest market. So we're hoping people still get married, even through a recession. They do say there's 3 things with the recession that people go to and they don't stop doing. So the first 2 we have here, and the third one I hope we don't. But the first one is drinking. So we have 50 plus wineries in town, so that's not going anywhere. The second one is gambling. We have the casino down the street, so we're good there.
Wow.
The third one's prostitution. So we're hopefully not being really advocate of that one. But if the recession does hit, I think Temecula has a good place where we do offer 2 of the 3 that people don't necessarily stop, and the market increases during a recession.
Those 3 things you said are what bring people to vacation rentals.
No, during a recession, those are the top 3 markets that go up during a recession.
Top 3 markets that go up during a recession are
gambling,
alcohol,
prostitution.
Okay, well, hopefully there's never any
prostitution
prostitution in Temecula Valley.
I agree.
I'm not interested in any way, shape, or
that.
form in having that here. But I'll tell you what, alcohol, that's not going anywhere.
Right.
And the gambling, that's not going anywhere. So I really feel like we're set up if we learn how to shop local, if we learn how to support one another's businesses. So, Zach, you look like you have 5,400 divided by 365. Did you do that?
Oh, no. Is that
yeah. Hey, 50. I don't know how to do your thing. Can you do 5,400 divided by 365?
14.79 weddings
14.
a day.
So there's about 15 weddings a day.
Yeah.
15 weddings a day.
And that's the crazy part is you think about, when we had our wedding, it was a place out in the middle of nowhere, as you know. And, but the bridesmaids all got to stay there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they had basically a short-term rental set up there. And you think about these places, there's not enough hotels in the Temecula Valley.
Correct.
And so when brides and grooms and those people, they don't want to book 27 hotel rooms.
Mm-hmm.
They just want to say, hey, let's book one house.
Mm-hmm.
Let's book one house and let's just handle it that way. And it's incredible to me that our governing body wouldn't recognize that that's a good thing. That's a good thing to support tourism.
Agreed. Yeah. And California, people come here for tourism. Just period. They come here. Why not make Temecula Valley a hotspot? And I feel like we're doing a really great job. I love walking through the mall and seeing all the new advertising for the Temecula Valley.
Yeah.
I'm like, great job. Great job to the city for doing that.
Visit Temecula.
Yeah, visit Temecula. What's that?
It's called the VTV, the Visit Temecula Bureau, and I sit on that board. So
no kidding.
Yeah.
Wait a second. No, that's great.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I love it because it gives our area a sense of identity,
Yep.
a sense of who we are. And so I love walking through. I was like, wow, all this Visit Temecula stuff, this is great because it's going to be great for our home values.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be great during this recession that the tourism can continue to bring in from alcohol
they say
and
each
gambling.
guest that comes in, regardless of their lodging, they spend at least $150. So every person that comes into town that stays in whether a hotel or a vacation rental spends at least $150 per person. And that's a lot of money that we would be losing if they decided to just do hosted only or ban them completely or whatever they're looking at doing.
Yeah, we act like people won't go somewhere else.
Right. And we have people right now when we tell them, because currently we have people booking for like 16, 17 people. We're saying, okay, just to let you know, there's might be a new ordinance that comes into play, and we're not sure how this will affect you. We have every intent to, if we got the bookings before that regulation came into play, we feel that they should be honored. But we're not sure how that's going to come down, and so we have to give them a heads up. They're like, I'm just going to go stay in San Diego.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. And they do. We've had tons of that where they just go stay somewhere else because of the uncertainty.
Gosh, what a shame.
Well, that's people aren't going to go to a hotel when they got to book 6 rooms and it's going to be $1,800 a night
Bingo.
for 6 rooms.
Yeah.
They're not going to. They're going to say, well, that's not the experience we want. We want to go to wine country. We don't want to stay in hotels. And hopefully our leadership understands that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So Supervisor Chuck Washington, show up at the next meeting, which is where?
On Lemon Street down in Riverside, the city of Riverside.
City of Riverside on
Lemon on the 12th or 13th.
12th or 13th. We'll post it in the comments. We'll find out about that. And then as far as vacation rentals, getting into vacation rentals right now, market's turning. Mm-hmm. I had an investor talk to me yesterday. He says, hey, I'm fixing and flipping right now. I said, it couldn't be a worse market for fix and flips. It's just not the time. What do you say to somebody who wants to buy a short-term rental right now?
I'd say be mindful of and make sure that you can pay your bills without the income that you think you're going to get from the short-term rental. Make sure that you can pay for it. There's going to be great months, there's going to be bad months, but you don't want to be like holding on to everything with this rental. So buy within your means. Don't buy some, extremely expensive house thinking that it's going to, pay for itself and some for right now, just to be safe. Just make sure you buy within your means and no HOA and not in the city of Temecula. And if you don't plan on hosting it, I actually own a house. Zach was our realtor for our house in Murrieta that we have a short-term rental, but there's only 10 houses in all of the city of Murrieta that can actually do it. So.
Great find, Zach.
Right?
Did you find that?
Actually, Matt sent it to me. He's like, hey man, this one came on the market. Can you double check to make sure that it fits?
Yeah.
And did the research and the homework, and it did. And so it was lucky. The biggest thing to impose is that if people think about getting into this, if they're not working with a real estate professional that actually will do their job, then call David or Amy, because at the end of the day, they need to pull the CC&Rs. They need to pull these things. They need to check the zoning. There's a lot of stuff that the real estate agent should be doing rather than selling you on hopes and dreams. Yeah.
Well,
and that's where working with a professional comes.
I can tell you right now that if somebody called me and they wanted to buy a vacation rental, I would refer them to you. And that's, you're a real estate agent. I'm a real estate agent. Amy's a real estate agent. Jessica, you're vacation rental owners. So, but at the end of the day, I would send them to you because that's not my forte. My forte is French Valley, Temecula Valley, single family homes. I'm not in commercial real estate. I'm not in property management. So at the end of the day, I believe you stick to your niche.
Yeah.
Anyway, very interesting stuff. Very interesting show.
Really quick, I did want to mention though, if you do live in an area that doesn't allow short-term rentals and you have a home and you're like, well, I don't want to sell it or I can't live in it, but I need to go, there's other options. And so when Temecula first banned short-term rentals, we were all trying to figure out, well, now what? And so we got into the market with insurance options. So if someone has a flood or a fire, or someone bought a home and they're doing construction, they don't want to live in it, they can stay in one of our homes. And so it has to be more than 30 days, just by the state of California, the cities and everything like that. But they don't make as much as a short-term rental, but they do make they make their mortgage usually and a half of it.
Yeah.
So what's the math? How do you?
Yeah, I mean, it's like 150% of your mortgage.
What's the occupancy on something like that?
So we usually tell people 80%. Right now, what we're showing is about 90%. Because if someone books, they say they check out May 31st, and we don't have somebody checking until June 15th. Those days have to stay open legally. We can't book them. So that's really where your days of inability to book.
Yeah, on those kind of rentals, one thing that we generally recommend is prepay your mortgage. You get 3 good months where you make enough to cover your mortgage for the whole year, or 4 months. Prepay that mortgage for the whole year, and then everything else past that, save it. Put it into a bank account, pay down your principal, do those kind of things to where that medium-term rental, as I call them, that medium-term rental, you can build equity in it a lot faster and really lower that liability.
there.
Well, this is fantastic info, you guys. I really appreciate you joining us today. And this about covers everything we've got as far as short-term vacation rentals go. So thank you for watching 951. We're the 101 and the 951. Thank you guys for watching.